Welcome into Locked On Horned Frogs. I am Steven Simcox, your host. We're going to talk about some things that Sonny Dykes said at Big 12 Media Days. We'll also get into some MLB Draft stuff and some big update on the realignment front between the Big 12 and the Pac 12. All that coming at you right now.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily TCU podcast. I'm Steven Simcox, your host, and let's jump right into it. So Big 12 Media Days went down late last week, and Sonny Dykes had a chance to talk to the media. He went through the car wash. He did, some individual interviews and the press conference and breakout session. And so we'll just hit on a couple of things that he said that I found interesting. He talked a lot, and he's talked about this before earlier in this offseason, but just how much he loves TCU. He thinks this is a great job. Just the pipeline of talent that can be recruited in the DFW Metroplex, his familiarity, being an analyst in 2017, and at that point, him realizing, this is a place that has a big commitment to athletics, that has great facilities, that wants to win, that is trying to do it, the right way. And that really opened his eyes to the possibilities there at TCU. And, one thing, I don't honestly know what the interest level was between Sonny and Texas Tech, but it is sort of intriguing. Obviously, Tech went and got Joe McGuire, and they did that mid-season. So the timeline didn't really shake out. But, that job was open. Spike Dykes had a great career there at Texas Tech as a legend in a lot of ways. And so the fact that Sonny ended up at TCU is just sort of intriguing and has had so many nice things to say about the university and just the opportunities at the university. So it's obvious that he thinks this is a great opportunity for him to win at a high level, to win in the Power Five. His last Power Five experience was not great. It was at Cal. It was not a great team. But I think TCU is a place that has a much bigger and better commitment to football and will set him up for success. Of course, he was asked about the quarterback situation, and he discussed it. I might be reading too much into this, but he has said this multiple times throughout the offseason that the players know who the starter is before the coaching staff does. He seems to think everybody in the building, this round of media days, he said the players know, the equipment managers, everyone seems to have an idea before the coach does who the starter is going to be, before they officially name him. And it's all about how they react to the starting quarterback, how they, feed off his energy, how they get behind him. And when he talks about intangibles, when he mentions Max Duggan, he always seems to talk about intangibles. He talks about his toughness, his leadership. He said at media days, he said the team really responds well to the way he plays. And maybe I'm just reading into that too much, but Chandler, I think, is the more talented player. Even that might be a little bit too much of an assumption simply because we haven't seen a lot of him. We saw him against Baylor. He was fantastic. Came down to earth in a huge way against Oklahoma State. But the Oklahoma State game in Stillwater, obviously you have to evaluate it. They got down early in that game, and they were never really competitive. There wasn't a lot that I could evaluate from that game. But, the thing that Max does really well, and I think it's what helped him keep the job for so long, despite his inconsistency, is he makes plays with his feet, and he just has a kind of a toughness and a leadership about him that I do think the team rallies around and responds to. Now, is that enough to win him the starting job? I don't know. But just reading between the lines, it sure seems like Sonny keeps making these statements about some of the off-the-field things that are involved in playing the quarterback position, and he always lumps that in with praising Max Duggan for how he does that well. He did say he wants to name a starter before the season, like a couple weeks before the Colorado game, which will be a nice change of pace because the last few years there's been a quarterback battle, and we haven't known what's going on until, the game started, basically. So we'll know a couple weeks before the season who the starter is, what that's going to look like, and we'll have a chance to sort of, evaluate how the season might go based on that decision. But overall, I thought Sonny did a really good job. He's very polished. He has a great energy about him, and I'm excited about this football season. Like, maybe it's just a breath of fresh air of having a new coaching staff. He talked a lot about the job Cascazotti's done and the strength and conditioning program. And to a certain extent, like, you always hear that when new strength and conditioning coaches come in. Oh, yeah, he's got these guys bulked up. He has all these new methods. But Kyle's comes in with just a lot of pedigree, and all the injuries this team has had the last few seasons, I think it was just time for a change there. So I think the first few weeks are going to be a roller coaster, probably going to be a lot of sloppy play. But there's a lot of reasons for optimism in my mind, especially about this offense. Quentin Johnston was there, and he talked about just trying to develop more consistency to really maximize what he has, on the field, and how that's going to be hopefully a big breakthrough for him this season is putting up the numbers that back up kind of the measurables and just the potential that people see in him because of his frame and his speed and everything that he brings to the table on the physical side. When we come back, I'll give a quick update on the MLB Draft. A couple TCU baseball players were selected today, and then we'll get into realignment news. Pete Thamel had an update tonight, actually, about the Big 12 and the Pac-12. Before we do that, though, let's talk about LinkedIn. If you own a small business, one of the most important things about owning a business, having a team, managing people, is finding the right people. It's the lifeblood of what you do. And LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier to grow your team. You can create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs and reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of 810 million people. And then add your job to the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. They have simple tools, screening questions that make it easy to connect with candidates and weed out people who might not be the best fit. It's why businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. Hiring is tougher than ever right now, and you have to find the right people that fit your culture, that fit your workplace. So make sure you do it with LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates that you want to talk to, and they help you find it faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? It's a huge network. Everybody has a LinkedIn account. It's, everyone has one. They're looking for work there. Post your job free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. And of course, it's free. And you know the motto, if it ain't free, it ain't me. So go to LinkedIn Jobs today. Okay, so a quick update on TCU baseball in the MLB Draft. Rounds, I think they went through round 10 today in day 2 of the draft. And Riley Cornelio and Caleb Bolden were both selected in the 7th round. Caleb Bolden kind of surprised me. Now, Caleb has good stuff. I mean, he's got a good breaking ball, a plus fastball. He did not have a great season at TCU. He transferred in from Arkansas. There were some high expectations for him. Didn't really work out. Ended in a bad way. He really had a tough outing against Texas A&M in the last game of the season. But, I mean, he does have electric stuff and was a bullpen guy really throughout his career. So he got picked up in the 7th round. Riley Cornelio got selected by the Nationals in the 7th round today. And so both those guys will have a chance to sign or they can come back. I would imagine Caleb's gone. I mean, he was a grad transfer last year. He really only has eligibility because of the COVID season. So I'd be shocked if he decided to come back. Tough year, 7th round pick, take that slot money and go. Riley's kind of an interesting case. I think Riley, it was really good to see him have a season where things started to come together and you saw him capitalize on the potential that people thought he had. Um, I mean, I think he could definitely be a dude that ends up being a first or second round pick if he puts together another great season. But that's a risk. It's always a risk when you come back. People, we'll see rounds 11 through 20 go down on Tuesday. And I've already seen people say, oh, well, Marcelo Perez, Austin Crowe, they haven't been selected yet. They're probably back. And I would just caution everyone, there's a lot of factors that go into this, especially now because there's a limited number of rounds. A lot of these guys are older, like Perez and Grove especially. They could definitely come back and try to put together another great season if they get drafted late. But at the same time, like, at a certain point, it's like you kind of have to make that jump and make that decision. Okay, do I go ahead and bet on myself now and try to make this work? So I wouldn't be surprised if those two guys got selected on Tuesday. And then Trey Richardson's another name to watch. He played at Baylor last year, entered the transfer portal, committed to TCU, but he is draft eligible. And so we'll see if he ends up somewhere later on Tuesday. So Pete Thamel, who writes for ESPN, longtime Yahoo writer, but he now works for the Worldwide Leader. And he had an article that dropped on Monday night that said the Big 12 and Pac-12 had been discussing a full merger, all the teams merging together. And apparently that discussion has died. Sources indicate there was a multitude of reasons for that, but one of the main ones was the grant of rights agreements for the two conferences. The TV deals for the two conferences did not expire at the same time. The Big 12's TV deal does not expire until 2024. The Pac-12 has opened up a window where they're currently renegotiating their TV deal. I think a Big 12 Pac-12 merger could be attractive. Another thing was, and probably the main thing here, it says they just didn't find a way to maximize revenue. So essentially, they kicked around some ideas and said, I don't know if this is going to make us any money. And so they're moving on. I still think the top priority for the Big 12 is to add Utah, Colorado, and the two Arizona schools because there seems to be some mutual interest there. And if you went ahead and did that, then you put a ton of pressure on Oregon and Washington to go ahead and make a decision, right? Like at that point, what do? If they want to stay in the Pac-12, they have to start adding schools. If they're going to add schools, I can't see them poaching anybody from the ACC. So they're kind of cornered into doing what the Big 12 did last summer, which is add schools from the group of five. So maybe adding Boise State, San Diego State, teams like that. Or does Washington and Oregon try to go elsewhere? Maybe you put some pressure on them to join the Big 12 as well. I think they're waiting for the Big 10. None of the Big 10 is waiting for Notre Dame. All these dominoes can fall. But you sort of corner Oregon and Washington to make a decision, and the Pac-12 could end up basically being gutted as a result of all those things going down. So I think the Big 12 is in a position of power right now. Brett Yormark seems to have a good vision for the conference. He said at Media Days that they're open for business. They're exploring all options. Priority number one is to try to maximize the Big 12's attractiveness in this new TV market. So I appreciate that he is being proactive about this. I think the longer this drags on, the more stability you give to the Pac-12. I still feel like there's a sense of urgency that is needed here because last summer when Texas and OU, it came down, oh, hey, they're bouncing. Everybody was like, oh, well, end of the Big 12, right? Like it's over. Nobody else will stick around. And, to be fair, and I've said this before, I think the schools that were left over, the 8 schools that were left over, they kind of made some calls around the country and didn't like what they heard as far as possibly joining another conference. And so they said, hey, let's just stand together here, maybe expand. But because there was no immediate action, because there was no immediate change, it provided some stability for the Big 12 to go ahead and make a decision to expand and to stick together. And the Pac-12, at least now, is trying to stand on a united front as well. I still think that's tedious, but I believe the longer this goes on, the sturdier that ground becomes. So I feel like it's really important Big 12 makes a move, tries to add these 4 corner schools and does it as quickly as possible. But a full-on Big 12, Pac-12 merger is not going to happen at the moment. So that is your latest realignment update. We'll wrap up the show in a second. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you about betonline.net. It's your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. You might say, man, this is a dead time of year. Well, it is sort of a dead time in the sports calendar, but there's still plenty of things you can bet on. And betonline.net has all the best sports, the best options, and it's a one-stop shop. It's not just betting, even though that's mainly what they do, but they also have podcasts. They have scores, news. I go there frequently just to kind of catch up on things. It's the fastest and easiest way to check on all your favorite sports and events. And they do it all: MMA, boxing, golf. So whatever kind of niche sport that you're into. I'm probably going to make some people mad by calling golf and MMA niche sports. Sorry. But whatever you're into, you can find it on betonline.net. Head to the website today. You can use your mobile device, your phone, and learn more about the trends and what's going on. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Okay, so a few more things. We got a lot of news today. It's been a very newsy day on the TCU front. So I'll close with this because this is a cool story. And I was talking earlier about, guys betting on themselves. Well, here's the dude that did that. Kenrich Williams, former TCU Horned Frog. He agreed to a 4-year, $27.2 million contract extension with the Oklahoma City Thunder today. That was reported by Woj at ESPN. Kenrich, actually, I know him pretty well. He played his high school ball in Waco, which I live in McGregor, which is about 20 minutes outside of where he grew up. He played at University High. He was a stud player there, but did not get a lot of attention in the college ranks. Won the JUCO route, ended up at TCU under Trent Johnson. And even on those teams at the end of the Trent era that were really struggling, you could just tell he was a ball player. And he had a nose for the ball. He just found a way to get involved in everything and fill up a stat sheet. And he continued to do that, continued to improve, did some special things on that Jamie Dixon team that went to the NCAA tournament. Did not get drafted, but sort of kicked around the league for a little while, made a name for himself, ended up on the Thunder, and now gets a big-time contract extension. So congratulations to him. And between Kenrich and Desmond Bain, it's just a really good time for TCU Horned Frogs in the NBA. And as people listening and watching know, that's not typical for TCU when it comes to, making it big in pro basketball. We'll be back on Wednesday and Friday this week. I'm Steven Simcox. This is Locked On Horned Frogs on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. My Twitter handle is down there at Simcox Steven. The show is at Locked On TCU on Twitter. Thank you. And I hope whenever you're listening to this, I appreciate it, and you have a good day.